Dungeons and Dragons Adventurer. Issue 19. Right, our 19th instalment has got some alien evils and some fancy cities. Let's grab a look at those. So to start with, we've got some dice and blue and silver looking dice. I'm less excited about these than I was last issue. These are just kind of regular plain boring dice again. I don't know what these are, like a 2-colour marble effect or something, but I don't know. Into the pile they'll go. As the contents say, monsters are everywhere, so we've actually got 2 different monster laws in this issue, and quite a bit for the DM with some traps and cities and managing your monsters, a little bit of overview, but no character creation. And we got a sewer adventure later on, and they were fantastic blue and silver dice. Use them as an alternative to the other dice in your collection. Well, I've got so many alternatives now that I need to think about how I'm going to carry all of these with their weight, which brings us on to encumbrance, lifting and carrying. So back in issue 2 we had a big statue with a weight, and ever since then I've had it listed like what's the full rules for encumbrance, and now we're going to find out. Turns out they're optional rules that require a little bit more bookkeeping than normal, but I think most stuff's got weights anyway. If you don't like it, you can live without it. If you do want a bit of it, you can put it in. Useful for games with survival and resource management, less useful for ones with flashy swashbuckling tones, say the film Dungeons and Dragons, which I think is the first time they've name dropped the actual film, from what I can recall. So encumbered characters, you've got all the actual rules here with the numbers. So when they're carrying weight, they can carry up to 5 times their strength score in pounds. So a character with strength 13 can carry 65 pounds. And they can carry up to 10 times their strength score, but they'll lose 10 feet of speed. Over 650 pounds in the above example. So they've got a little error there. It should be 130 and they've multiplied the wrong number. But if you're over this 10 times limit, your speed drops by 20 feet and you get disadvantages on attack rolls, ability checks, saving throws for strength, dex and constitution. They've got a top tip here. When using encumbrance rules, ignore the minimum strength requirement for like the armours, so plate armour, chain armour, etc. All that matters is the total weight you're carrying. So the total weight you're carrying lower your speed, so you can wear whatever armour. And they've got down here, even if you're not using the rules, it's got a little rule of thumb. So the maximum carrying capacity of anyone is 15 times your strength. And if they're going to pull, drag or lift something, you can do up to 30 times your strength, but it will only be about 5 feet speed. But that's all the rules we're getting today for the players, so now we're going to move on to the DM section. And we're going back to monsters, so we're in the 4th part of managing monsters, which is to do with lairs. So most monsters, they're going to have some sort of lair, that's lair effects. The monsters and enemies will have a base lair, which will be where they retreat to when they're wounded and need to heal up, or just in between plotting what their dastardly deeds are going to be. Although not all of these have to be evil, even good creatures have lairs too. But the lair effects are whatever's happening in your lair will affect around it. So if you go to a red dragon lair, a stream there might become acid. The lair of the undead in a forest, the trees are going to like twist and warp and going to try and claw at any passers by. And they can make some great dungeons, like abandoned mercenaries might behold them in a cave with a place like secret entrances and exits, hidden weapon caches that only they know about. And talks about the Cragmore hideout adventure in Fandeliver and below the Shattered Obelisk, which I'm assuming is one of the add-on adventures you can get. And there's a mention about lair actions, which I think is going to be over the page. The lair actions aren't actually explained, but it has a little top tip that lair effects and lair actions are reserved for powerful monsters, but you can adapt them for weaker creatures. So one of the infamous monster lairs would be lair of a red dragon, and it says here you can scale the damage all the way down to 1d6 fire damage to make a lair for an army of fiery warriors, for example. So I guess on the stat blocks you'll probably have listed lair actions and lair effects for the monsters, or in particular adventures. Or we might have a future Managing Monsters page that explains it, but for now I'll leave it as a little mystery for me. It does as well keep talking about how you need to bring the lairs to life. So dragon lairs are going to be full of treasure, a manticore lair will be full of bones and corpses, a hag's lair would be horrific and frightening, just to bring it all to life for your players, especially if they spent a long time trying to get there. And we're also going to now consider their motivations as well. So rather than everything being, oh, kill this before they kill you, the question is why? So you might have loads of undead that are trying to get to a necromancer that you're trying to attack, or they're protecting him, or wild animals that are attacking you because they're hungry. Back in the old first quest box set, you could find a carrion crawler trapped in a room where actually it was just starving, so it would attack you when you open the door. And if you fed it food, you got like an experience bonus instead for feeding it for non-combat. So stuff like that. What was your monster's motivation? Why is it attacking the party? Nicely here, they've got a couple of tables. If you say have a random encounter, and you need to randomly decide how these monsters are going to act. So you've got like a 10-row table for personality, and a 6-row table for relationships. So the monsters could be cowardly, greedy, sneaky, cruel. The personality or like relationships could be one of them seen as a bully and the allies want it defeated, or it's worshipped, the allies would die for it. It's a rival. It's got mentioned, like, say if you killed an owlbear's mate, would the other one flee or would it try to enact revenge? A few more tips, like if you like playing like a tactical game, give different foes different jobs. So the sneaky foe might be like a bandit scout, whereas a bully or cruel bandit might be the leader. But to keep things simple, you could assign the same personality to the whole group. So if you had a group of bandits and you rolled a rabble, so poorly trained and easily rattled, the whole group of bandits could just be rabbled to make it easy. And that way, as soon as they start falling, they're all likely to run away. But then, does it always have to be a fight? Something to consider. Now we've got some more trap section, part 2, and we're going to talk about cleverly placed traps to add excitement and peril to the adventure. When creating the adventures, you should decide what sort of environment it's in. So what's the best sort of theme trap? Magical, mechanical? They've got a little checklist here just to help you. So if you're going to put traps in, like how are they going to be triggered? What should be its DC? How can characters detect it? How can it disarm it? What's going to happen if they don't? What's the purpose? What's it guarding? They've got some classic traps. So to start, we've got pit traps. So to find like a pit trap's easy enough. DC 10 perception check or intelligence investigation check. If you step in it, you trigger it, you're going to take 1d6 damage for every 10 feet you fall through the trap. It can be upgraded, so it can be more carefully hidden, so the DC goes up to 15. It could have spikes at the bottom, so the characters take 2d10 piercing damage when they hit there. Complicated as well. Animated skeletons fall from above. If it's out in the open, a wasp nest from the branch of a tree could fall in. You could have a spring-loaded trapdoors trap characters in unless they make a DC 20 strength check. And in more context, the pit traps can be used to separate the party. You could have a sliding tunnel at the bottom to move them to a different area, or include them as part of the combat encounter, so that makes an additional challenge for the party to overcome. Over the page, more classic traps for the deadly statues. So the traps have got pressure plates, you stand in it and it bursts a flame at you, or might shoot darts out the eye holes or something. So if you want to find the traps, find a pressure plate, it's got a DC 15 to spot. Obviously trigger it, if you step in it, it might have any effects. The one in this here is a 30-foot cone of fire. In order to foil it, you have to wedge an object under the pressure plate, and you can alter the trap by changing the statue, the effect, the trigger conditions. There's a lot you can do with deadly statues. There's a lot more classic sort of traps, and this little box here has got some of them, like collapsing roofs, poison needles hidden in like locks or mechanisms, swinging blades that come out when you're walking down the corridor. Plenty of classic traps to go from. And unlike monsters, traps don't have a challenge rating. You can just decide how deadly they are using the trap danger rating. They've got a couple little tables here. So your trap danger can be setback, dangerous or deadly, and it gives you the save DC for the trap and then the attack bonus, I guess, when it's damaging you. And the damage severity you've got here, so character level, you've got your setback traps, your save DC traps, and your deadly traps. I'm assuming that should be dangerous traps, and they've just copied the table over and made a mistake there. That is the guide level for how much damage you should do. So first level characters setback will get 1d10, whereas 17th level characters with a deadly trap will get 24d10. So that one is very deadly. After the traps, you've got some cities to bring to life. So this is a big DM issue. I'm getting like quite a lot of good stuff here. So this section is obviously going to talk about cities. The first few quests for many heroes often set in small villages or farms, like Phandalin. Eventually though, the path to eventually leads to a city, like Neverwinter. I wonder if this talks about how it's going to go. Up until now, the characters have been the main centre of the attention in the campaign, but now they're a small part of something bigger. And it just tells you, obviously, you should talk about it like that way. So even before they reach the city, you should describe what they're seeing. Of course, we haven't done that so far, because all our adventures have kind of been one-shots where you've just already got there. There's not been much travelling. The travelling's done out of adventure sort of thing. So city adventures, you can do well to set the scene, and then take quite a bit of planning according to all these boxes. So what's quite cool is if you've got a couple of maps of the city you can give to the players. It's a shame they haven't given us any city maps yet, but hopefully they might have some in future issues or in some adventures where they'll have like a nice bigger map. I think we had a map of Phandalin in the first issue. I can't quite remember. I'd have to go back and have a browse of that. All the cities on the Sword Coast share the same thing. They're all heavily guarded, high defensive walls. Each has got their own number of troops, like the City Guard faction that we saw. And then all the other 5 main factions, all represented in various levels of popularity. And just give the hustle and bustle, so talk about some things that's going on. Does the market district smell of spices? As they walk along, does a pub tavern brawl spill out onto the road? Prepare a table of random events. That's probably a pretty cool one to do. or hopefully I'll just find an already made one and just adapt it. Whatever happens, just be prepared for your party to explore the city rather than just come in, get supplies and go. Which is probably why now they're going to talk about roles. So you can have different roles in the party. You can have a balanced party, you could have an unbalanced party. The important thing is to make sure you're having fun. A character shouldn't turn up and have to play a cleric just because there's no healers in the party. At the same time, as a DM, you should advise them if the adventure they're going on needs a bit more of a balanced party, or if it's catered to their strengths. Again, even though you want to slaughter all the players, the idea is for everyone to have fun, really. Yeah, don't make them feel railroaded into their choices. And anyway, so rather than just also having skills and classes, so everyone have different roles. So obviously the cleric could be the healer, the barbarian would be the front line. And they've got a list over the page of what they recommend they should be. One of the things I mentioned on the other page is to think of it like a heist, where you got to get your certain team of skills together. Whereas these don't sound like heist names from classic heists, these sound more like MMORPGs or something like that. Or just general fantasy combat ones, actually. I just saw tank went with that. But yeah, so your tanks are going to be the frontline guys like fighters, barbarians, plaiders and monks. You've got some support who will help your characters in a number of ways. They might give them buffs. They might give the enemies debuffs, so cleric, paladin, druid and bards. A blaster is going to do a lot of damage through spells, so wizard, sorcerer, warlock. The face is going to sweet talk guards, rogue, bard, or warlock again. So these would probably be like charismatic or intimidating people. And the healer is going to heal, unsurprisingly. Cleric, paladin and bard. That seems like it's enough of DM stuff today, so now we're going to lore to talk about monsters. And I feel like from the contents, all the monsters we're talking about will come up in the end of the issue. As long as there's probably going to be traps in the encounter, city exploring, and sorting out party roles, if we use everything for this issue. First of the two creatures in the lore is Aboleths, which are some slimy creatures so old none can remember when they first lived out the primeval seas. I've never really heard of these things before, but they do look like weird old sea creatures. Eyes there, and I feel like these things are a lot bigger than it looks on the page. I've got no reference point here in the artwork. But they have strong psychic powers, and they have a long memory. They always remember that the gods wronged them, and now they seek to return the favour. How dangerous are the Aboleth? Looking at here, it reminds me of the creature from the Guardians of the Galaxy 2 intro. But what they've got tentacle attacks, they've got tail strike, they can inflict a disease that transforms you into a subaquatic creature, psychic domination and a psychic drain as well. So quite powerful. Of course, unsurprisingly, beware the lair. So we've just been discussing all the lairs earlier because I imagine we're going to fight one in the lair. But that's where they're most dangerous. You know when you're approaching one because it becomes slippery, all the water will be fouled, and inside the lair it can actually use the water itself as a weapon. It can also cast a spell Phantasmal Force with psionic powers. Don't know what it does yet, I have to check the books. Right, one creature down, one to go with this Grell. Is this also going to have psychic powers? It's got no eyes, so I'll assume it's psychic. It's a floating tentacle terror anyway. These things will have nothing better than to feast on humans. They'll lurk silently in caves or tunnels. They've got 10 tentacles, and then they'll silently descend on their prey. They've got paralysing venom or toxin, and then they'll take them there, but they'll withdraw their brains because they're poisonous to them, but they would feast on the remainder. They're also immune to electricity because of the fact that they're sensitive to electronic fields. They're very electroreceptive. They can also hear through their skin as well, and that's not a brain, that's its actual body with all its vital organs. Now these type of Grell creatures only see three other types of creatures. You're either edible, inedible, or a bigger eater who's going to eat the Grell. But the majority of adventurers are just going to be edible. And a little thing here that used to be in the Shadow Dusk hold, and a archmage once used two of them as bodyguards. Okay, so let's leave these guys for now and move on to the Sewer Stalkers, which, as normal, this is for the Dungeon Master's eyes. So if you're playing character and you're going to play through, just use the chapters below to skip ahead. Otherwise we'll continue. So here we go, we're going to go to the volcano Mount Hope now. Lord Nevermember has had some issues with it by the sounds of it. Strange monsters have been sighted, people are going missing, and obviously lurking down is a Grell and an Aboleth as well. Or an Aboleth was once here, I don't know if it's still here. So the Wintershire Watchmen call upon you to uncover the fate and rescue survivors. I like that these adventures are starting to keep using stuff from previous adventures more than they did before. So you're going to visit your lodgings, perhaps the Beached Leviathan from Encounter 16, by Lieutenant Hodgin Muddock, who you may have met in the last encounter too. There's a survey team mapping the old sewers, they've gone missing, it's the second time it's happened. You'll get 50 GP each to find out what's happened to the survey team and rescue survivors. So the team had four members, a Dwarven surveyor named Truhilda, and 3 human red shirts, labourers who served as her guards. And there's giant rats and sewer crocodiles, but they've also reported in silhouette of a creature with long grasping tendrils. Anyway, you go to the sewers, it's got all the features to describe. So high ceilings, foul smelling liquid. If you're going through the sewer channels and you're less than full HP, the characters could contract sewer plague, which just means they're exhausted and they need to rest to recover from it. The event down there is hunted, so the Grells are actually going to start hunting the characters. It's going to move a room when they're making noise or in combat, and if they're in the same room it's hiding, with a ridiculous DC of 21. 21? That's stealthy. But yeah, it turns out base 10, it's got +6 to stealth checks, and because it's got advantage on the checks, it gains +5 bonus instead for passive checks. And so start locations. Map must be over the page. We've got the main tunnel and the feasting crawler so far. Get into the map, so it's a nice, simple, straightforward map encounter. We've got the sewers here with a bit of branching paths. We've got a collapsed tunnel there, you can't get down. So we're going to find a couple of carrion crawlers. There's one in S2 who's currently devouring one of the party. There's another one hiding in the ceiling in S4 who's got a crew member ready to go. S6 down here is the Grell's lair, and he's got another character dead in there. And S7 is where we'll find Brunhilde, hidden behind a secret door and a blocked up door there. So quite simple, he's just going to go after in, fight 2 carrion crawlers plus a Grell and just get out alive with the survivor. Easy peasy. So there we are. Check out the carrion crawler stat block before we go over the page. Also now get the Grell's stat block. There's no stat block for the Aboleth, but it did say previously that the Aboleth is out of the scope of this adventure. So either they've got it planned for a future adventure or it's just too powerful at the minute. But we'll just stick with the Grell. I got confused a minute with the Grell because it's got senses, passive perception 10, and I was like, well, that doesn't make sense because it's got perception skills. And then I got down and then I got to senses and I was like, oh, they're there. So it's just got an extra line that shouldn't be there. Otherwise, he's got 2 different passive perceptions depending on how you feel like taking it. And then like every stat block we seem to have recently, it's got multi-attack again. But I guess it's just like the heroes have got attacks and bonus actions which will also get attacks. And there's only 3 monsters to fight. Interestingly, that Brunhilde hasn't got any stats listed there, so perhaps she's not a fighter. So she's not the character in this picture here. Although I knew that anyway. And that's clearly Rezagar. Issue 19 down. Issue 20 up next. With just 1 die, not dice. Although we've got that. I think that's part of the big set, as far as I know, because I know I've got 3 so far. All different colours. There'll be surprises, criminals, potions, and some other bits. So as long as you're still here, thanks for sticking around. There'll be some links popping up now. So the one over here will be to follow the magazine when it's ready. The one over here will be to follow the series when it's ready. Well, thanks for watching. Hope to catch you soon.